The junkyard fleet. Captain Maya Chen stared at the holographic display of her fleet, if you could even call it that. 37 vessels of various shapes and sizes hovered in formation around her command ship, the Persistence. Not a single one of them had been designed for combat. Mining vessels with hastily welded weapon mounts. Passenger liners with their luxurious quarters gutted to make room for shield generators. Cargo haulers that now carried improvised missiles instead of grain or machinery. Status report, Maya called out, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Lieutenant Rudjev looked up from his console. All ships report ready, Captain. Well, as ready as they'll ever be. Maya nodded. That was as good as it would get. On her display, the enemy fleet, the Nexari Dominion, approached with mathematical precision. Each vessel identical to its counterparts, moving in perfect harmony, their sleek hulls unmarred by hasty modifications or jury-rigged components. 5 months ago, humanity had never heard of the Nexari. Then their advance fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, and within weeks, Earth's defense forces lay in ruins. The Nexari's technology was generations ahead of humanity's best warships. Their targeting systems never missed. Their shields adapted to any conventional weapon. After the loss of the Jupiter Defense Station and its 15 state-of-the-art battleships, the Allied Earth Command had made a desperate decision. Draft every space-worthy civilian vessel into military service, arm them however possible, and pray that quantity might overcome quality. They're launching their first wave, announced Tactical Officer Liu, her fingers dancing over her console. 64 attack drones, standard Nexari pattern. Maya leaned forward. Enact Operation Scraffy. Throughout her cobbled-together fleet, crews jumped into action. The mining vessels moved forward, their industrial cutting lasers, designed to slice through asteroids, now pointed at the incoming drones. The beams weren't focused enough for precision targeting, but that wasn't the plan. Wide dispersal, Maya ordered. Make them fly through a web. The mining lasers fired, not as concentrated beams, but as wide-angle energy nets that filled space with crackling power. The Nexari drones, programmed to avoid direct fire, found themselves flying into energy fields that their sensors hadn't properly identified as threats. 12 drones exploded immediately. 20 more suffered damage to their navigation systems, spinning out of control. Second phase, Maya commanded. 3 converted garbage scows moved forward, their waste ejection systems now loaded with thousands of tiny metal fragments, scrapped from destroyed ships. Broken machinery, even shattered kitchen utensils from the passenger liners. The scows ejected their makeshift flak cloud directly into the path of the remaining drones. The Nexari drones were designed to avoid large projectiles and energy weapons. Their shields were calibrated against military-grade lasers and missiles. They weren't designed to filter out thousands of irregularly shaped metal fragments moving at different velocities. More drones detonated as their engines ingested the debris, or their sensitive sensor arrays were shredded. On the main Nexari vessels, Maya could imagine the confusion. Their tactical computers would be struggling to classify what was happening. This wasn't how humans were supposed to fight. They're recalling the remaining drones, Liu reported, surprise evident in her voice. And they're adjusting their formation. The Nexari vessels were spreading out, moving into a classic envelopment position. Standard military doctrine when facing an unconventional opponent. Maya smiled grimly. They think we're being random. They don't realize there's a method to our madness. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute Plan Broken Arrow. The response was immediate. Throughout Maya's fleet, ships began maneuvering in ways that would make any military tactician cringe. Passenger liners deliberately exposed their flanks. Mining ships appeared to retreat in disarray. Cargo haulers moved directly toward the Nexari line, as if on suicide runs. They're targeting the cargo haulers, Liu called out, reading weapons lock from 3 Nexari cruisers. Hold steady, Maya ordered, watching the tactical display with an intensity that made her eyes water. The Nexari opened fire. their energy weapons lancing out with perfect precision. The cargo hauler's shields, improvised from industrial force fields meant to contain hazardous materials, flared brightly, then collapsed. But instead of exploding, the cargo haulers released clouds of reflective metallic dust, industrial coolant, mixed with pulverized mirror fragments from the passenger liners. The Nexari energy beams hit the clouds and scattered, some reflecting back toward their sources, others branching out in unpredictable directions. 2 Nexari vessels suffered damage to their forward sensors. Another registered shield fluctuations as its own energy was reflected back at frequencies it wasn't prepared to absorb. "Now," Maya shouted. From behind the apparent chaos of her scattered fleet, 5 ships emerged, former luxury yachts, their sleek hulls now bristling with communication arrays salvaged from destroyed military vessels. These ships broadcast on all frequencies, flooding the area with electronic noise and false targeting data. The Nexari ships, their tactical systems momentarily confused by the barrage of contradictory information, hesitated just for a moment. That moment was all Maya needed. "All mining vessels, concentrated cutting on designated targets," she ordered. "Passenger liners, deploy your packages." The mining vessels, now regrouped, focused their industrial lasers on specific points on the Nexari ships, not the heavily shielded weapons arrays or engine housings, but the communication nodes that extended slightly from their hulls. These weren't military targets, so the Nexari shields weren't configured to prioritize their protection. As the communication arrays on 3 Nexari vessels melted under the sustained industrial-grade laser assault, the passenger liners launched their packages. Maintenance robots reprogrammed to attach to enemy hulls and used their repair tools to cut through the outer plating. The battle that followed wasn't elegant. It wasn't the orderly exchange of fire that military strategists spent their careers perfecting. It was messy, chaotic, and utterly unpredictable, exactly as Maya had planned. Her fleet took losses. 5 ships destroyed, 7 more damaged beyond repair. But the Nexari retreated, leaving behind 2 of their cruisers, disabled by techniques their tactical computers couldn't classify as standard military approaches. In the aftermath, as damage reports flowed in and medical teams worked to save the injured, Maya's communication officer intercepted a transmission from the retreating Nexari fleet. "Captain," he called out, "I think you should hear this." The message, translated by their computers, was brief. "Humans do not fight according to rational patterns. Tactical reassessment required." Maya leaned back in her command chair, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Tactical reassessment, indeed," she murmured. "Tell all ships to begin salvage operations. I want every piece of Nexari technology we can recover. It's time we learned how to build some new scrap." 3 months later, Maya stood in what had once been a civilian shipyard orbiting Mars. Now it was the headquarters of what the media was calling the Junkyard Fleet, humanity's improbable defense force. Engineer Patel guided her through the latest modifications. "We've integrated the Nexari communication technology we salvaged into our sensor arrays," he explained, pointing to a schematic. "It gives us a 50% boost in range, and their protocols allow us to eavesdrop on their tactical networks." Maya nodded approvingly. "And the shield modifications?" "Even better," Patel grinned. "We discovered their shields are tuned to specific frequencies, military-grade weapons, but our industrial cutting lasers operate outside those frequencies. We've modified our shields with the same principle. Their weapons are now only 70% effective against our larger ships." Around them, the shipyard buzzed with activity. Technicians and engineers, many of whom had been building pleasure yachts or cargo vessels 6 months ago, were now creating hybrid ships that combined human ingenuity with scavenged alien technology. "The Nexari are coming back," Maya said, looking out at the ships under construction. "And this time, they'll be ready for our tricks." Patel's smile didn't waver. "Then we'll have to come up with new ones, won't we? That's the thing they don't understand about humans, Captain. We don't follow the playbook because we're constantly rewriting it." Maya couldn't argue with that. The Nexari, for all their technological superiority, thought in straight lines. A leads to B leads to C humans, faced with a superior opponent, looked for option Q or Z, or something not in the alphabet at all. Her comm unit beeped. Captain Chen, incoming transmission from Admiral Okafor. Maya accepted the call, and the Admiral's weathered face appeared on her screen. Chen, we've got a problem. Long-range scouts report a new Nexari fleet approaching, at least twice the size of what you faced before. Maya absorbed the news, then asked, "How long do we have?" 3 weeks, at most. And Chen, this time they're bringing their dreadnought. The call ended, and Maya turned back to the shipyard with new urgency. 3 weeks to prepare for an enemy that now knew humans didn't fight fair. 3 weeks to turn scrap into a fleet that could challenge a dreadnought. It wasn't enough time. But it was all they had. Masters of adaptation. The Nexari dreadnought emerged from hyperspace like a mountain appearing out of fog, massive, imposing, and seemingly immovable. Its escort fleet spread out in perfect formation, each ship positioned exactly where tactical doctrine dictated it should be. From her command chair on the Persistence, Maya watched the enemy arrival with a calm that belied the tension gripping her crew. In the 3 weeks since Admiral Okafor's warning, her fleet had grown to 112 vessels, all of them modified, improved, and armed with innovations that would have been unthinkable before the war. They've adjusted their shield configurations, reported Tactical Officer Liu. Pattern suggests they're now calibrated against wide-spectrum energy attacks and reflective countermeasures. Maya nodded. Just as we expected. They're learning. Their formation is different too, added Lieutenant Rajiv. The smaller ships are positioned to intercept projectiles before they reach the cruisers. They've analyzed our previous engagement thoroughly. So have we, Maya replied, activating the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Captain Chen. The enemy has adapted to our previous tactics. Now they'll see how quickly humans can evolve. Begin Operation Trojan. Throughout her fleet, crews moved with practiced precision. Ships that appeared to be standard mining vessels or converted cargo haulers began emitting specific energy signatures, signatures that exactly matched those of the Nexari's own support craft. Meanwhile, actual combat vessels modified with salvaged Nexari technology powered down their primary systems, appearing as little more than debris or derelict ships on enemy scans. Nexari fleet is holding position at extreme weapons range, Liu reported. They're running active scans. Wait, they're focusing on our decoy ships. Maya leaned forward. They're trying to figure out why some of our ships are emitting Nexari signatures. Good. Engineering, status of the resonance field. Chief Engineer Patel's voice came through the comm. Field generators at 90% capacity, Captain. The Scrapyard Brigade is in position. The Scrapyard Brigade was Maya's latest innovation, a specialized unit composed of ships built almost entirely from salvaged Nexari components. They didn't look like Nexari vessels. They looked like what they were, patchwork constructions of alien technology repurposed by human hands. But their energy signatures, when powered down, were nearly identical to actual Nexari craft. The Dreadnought is launching fighters, Liu announced. 60, no, 80 units. Standard search pattern. Let them come, Maya said. All ships maintain position. Brigade vessels remain powered down until the fighters pass your coordinates. Minutes ticked by as the Nexari fighters moved methodically through the human fleet, scanning each vessel. They paid particular attention to the decoy ships emitting Nexari signatures, but largely ignored what appeared to be floating debris. Fighter group approaching brigade position, Liu reported. Maya waited until the fighters were fully committed, then gave the order. Brigade. Execute Lazarus Protocol. In what appeared to be a debris field, 30 ships suddenly powered up, not with the gradual buildup of human technology, but with the instant surge characteristic of Nexari systems. Before the Nexari fighters could react, they found themselves surrounded. "Brigade vessels, deploy gravity nets," Maya ordered. The hybrid ships activated their most ambitious integration of Nexari technology, modified tractor beams that created localized gravity distortions. The Nexari fighters, designed to operate in predictable space, suddenly found themselves pulled in multiple directions. "They're losing formation," Liu reported with barely contained excitement. "Their navigation systems are failing to compensate." The Nexari main fleet reacted immediately, adjusting their position to bring weapons to bear on the newly revealed threat. But in doing so, they exposed a vulnerability in their otherwise perfect formation. "All mining vessels, execute meteor shower," Maya commanded. The mining ships, actual mining ships this time, not decoys, activated their excavation charges, normally used to break apart asteroids for resource extraction. These charges had been modified with a simple but effective addition: a coating of salvaged Nexari hull material. The charges flew toward the Nexari fleet, their Nexari hull coatings causing them to register as friendly objects on enemy sensors. By the time the Nexari tactical systems identified the threat, the charges were already among their ships. The explosions weren't particularly powerful by military standards, but they didn't need to be. Their purpose wasn't destruction but disruption, creating gaps in the Nexari sensors and communication network through which Maya's next attack could slip. Phase 3, Maya ordered. "Civilian transports, execute silent runner." 10 large passenger liners, their interiors completely gutted and rebuilt, accelerated toward the Nexari fleet. Their engines had been modified with sound-dampening technology borrowed from luxury yacht designs, making them nearly silent in space. More importantly, they'd been coated with Nexari sensor-absorbent material salvaged from the previous battle. The Nexari dreadnought, its attention focused on the more obvious threats, failed to detect the approaching transports until they were within its defensive perimeter. "Transports report they're in position," Regiv announced. "Awaiting your command." Maya took a deep breath. This was the moment everything hinged on. "Tell them to deploy the ghosts." From each transport emerged dozens of small objects, maintenance drones modified with Nexari propulsion technology. Each drone carried a simple payload, a combination of industrial cutting equipment and the most powerful mining explosives available. The drones swarmed toward the dreadnought, targeting not its weapons or engines, but the thousands of small sensor nodes that dotted its hull. These nodes formed the distributed network that gave the massive ship its battlefield awareness. "They're deploying point defense," Liu reported. Maya nodded. "As expected. Brigade vessels, initiate electronic warfare package." The hybrid ships of the Scrapyard Brigade, having dealt with the Nexari fighters, now turned their attention to the dreadnought. They began broadcasting on Nexari frequencies, using codes and protocols gleaned from captured technology. The transmissions weren't sophisticated enough to fool the Nexari systems for long, but they didn't need to be. They only needed to create enough confusion to allow the drones to reach their targets. On the dreadnought, sensor nodes began going dark as the drones attached themselves and went to work. For a ship designed to operate with perfect information, the sudden gaps in its awareness were catastrophic. "The dreadnought's firing pattern is becoming erratic," Liu announced. "They're having trouble coordinating their defensive systems." Maya watched the tactical display, where the massive Nexari vessel was now firing at shadows, its once precise targeting now reduced to educated guesses. "Now we press our advantage. All combat vessels, advance and engage designated targets. Mining ships, prepare for close-range cutting operations." What followed wasn't the clean, efficient space battle depicted in human fiction. It was industrial warfare, messy, brutal, and pragmatic. Mining lasers sliced through Nexari hull plating. Repurposed cargo grapples tore into enemy ships. Civilian vessels with reinforced hulls deliberately rammed smaller Nexari craft. The Nexari, their tactical systems struggling to categorize and respond to the myriad unconventional threats, found their perfect formation disintegrating into a chaotic melee where their technological advantages meant less with each passing minute. At the center of it all, the dreadnought, pride of the Nexari fleet, floundered like a wounded animal, its sensor network compromised, its defensive coordination failing. When Maya gave the order to target its main power distribution nodes, information gleaned from study of salvaged Nexari components, the mighty vessel finally went dark. The remaining Nexari ships, seeing their flagship disabled, did what their tactical doctrine dictated. They retreated in perfect order to regroup and reassess. But this time, Maya had no intention of letting them escape to analyze and adapt. All ships with functional Nexari propulsion systems, pursue and harass. Don't engage directly, just don't let them have time to think. As the battle transformed into a pursuit, Maya finally allowed herself to relax slightly. Around her, the bridge crew was checking damage reports, coordinating rescue operations, and already beginning to catalog salvageable enemy technology. "Captain," Regev called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the dreadnought. It's a request for terms of surrender." The bridge fell silent. In all the months of conflict, no Nexari vessel had ever surrendered. Their doctrine called for self-destruction rather than capture. "Put it through," Maya ordered. The face that appeared on her screen was humanoid but clearly alien, skin too smooth, eyes too large, features too symmetrical. The Nexari commander spoke in his own language, the ship's computer translating. "Your tactics defy analysis. Your technology is inferior yet employed in ways our simulations cannot predict. We surrender this vessel for study, that we might understand how beings with such primitive capability could defeat superior technology." Maya considered her response carefully. "We don't think like you do," she finally said. "That's our advantage. You see a straight line from problem to solution. We see infinite possibilities." The Nexari commander's expression remained unreadable. "This is why we have failed. Our tactical computers classify unusual approaches as errors to be corrected. You embrace the unusual as opportunity." "Human ingenuity," Maya replied with a slight smile. "We've been making do with whatever's at hand since we climbed down from the trees. You gave us scrap to fight with, so we became masters of scrap." As salvage teams prepared to board the captured dreadnought, Maya looked out at her fleet. Her beautiful, ugly, magnificent fleet of retrofitted civilian vessels and hybrid constructions. Not a single ship matched any other. Not a single weapon system was standard issue. Each vessel represented hundreds of creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. The Nexari had come expecting to face a primitive species fighting with inferior technology, according to predictable military doctrine. Instead, they found humans, adaptable, resourceful, and utterly unpredictable. They had sent humans to war with scrap. Now, humans rule the battlefield. "Begin recovery operations," Maya ordered. "I want every piece of Nexari technology cataloged and analyzed. By the time their reinforcements arrive, I want us to be so unpredictable they won't know what hit them." Around her, the crew moved with new confidence. They were no longer the desperate defenders of a doomed world. They were innovators, improvisers, the species that turned junk into victory. And somewhere in Nexari space, their enemy was learning a lesson that countless others before them had discovered too late. Never underestimate a human with a pile of scrap and a deadline.